Welcome to Lesson 2.7, Objectives. Number 1, make ballpark estimates. Number 2, use the partial sums method to solve addition problems. Estimating in the ballpark. Here's an example of a number line. It starts at 20 over here in red, and it ends at 30 over here in blue. Halfway in the middle is 25. The red section means the ones place in all of these numbers is smaller than 5. The blue section means the ones place is 5 or more, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When we are estimating, we want to look at that ones place. If it's 5 or higher, the tens place goes up 1 10 to the next closest 10. If this ones place is smaller than 5, then the tens place stays the same and the ones place changes to a 0. In both examples, the ones place will change to a 0. We're just deciding, should the tens place stay the same or should it go up? Let's take a look at an example. If I have the number 27 and I want to make a ballpark estimate, I'm trying to decide, is this number closest to 20 or is it closest to 30? I can see on the number line it is closer to 30, but also there's this rule of 5 or more that can help me. The ones place is more than 5, it's 7. So the tens jumps up by 1, that 2 changes to 3, and the ones place will change to a 0. This tells me 27 is close to 30. If I look at an example on the small side of the number line, and choose 22, and I want to estimate, what is 22 close to? Is it closer to 20 or 30? I can see it's very close to 20. But if I use the rule, looking at the ones place, it's smaller than 5. That means that my 10 stays the same. I leave it at a 2, and the ones changes to a 0. 22 is close to 20. Let's continue to make ballpark estimates. This time we want to add numbers together. Ballpark estimates are great for if you're solving an addition problem. A ballpark estimate first can help you decide what the answer should be close to. Then when you actually solve the problem for real and get an exact answer, you can see if you were close to what you were thinking. You can see if your real answer is close to the estimate. Let's get started. We're first going to think about 63. 63 is close to which number? Here it would be on the number line, 63. I can see that it's very close to 60. Using the rule, looking at the ones place, it's only a 3. Okay, that's less than 5, so my 10 stays the same, and the ones changes to a 0, so I can see 63 is close to 60. I'm going to write that down here in the first part of my number model. Remember, I need to change it now and add on this 24. Okay, 24 is close to what? Well, 24 would be right here on our number line. We can see that 24 is close to 20, but using the rule again, looking at this 4, it's less than 5, so my tens place stays the same. It stays at a 2. The ones place changes to a 0. So 24 is close to 20. If I were to add these parts together, 60 plus 20 would give me a total of 80. You try this now. Quiz question number 1. Please take out your math notebook. I would like you to make a ballpark estimate for 49 plus 32. Estimate each of these numbers, what are they close to, and add them together to find an answer. Now we're going to use place value to help us solve partial sums. This should say sums. Sorry about that, students. Partial sums addition problems. In class, we have some blocks that look just like this. This is called a cube, and it represents our ones place. Next to it, we have longs. This long represents the tens place. And then we have what we call a flat, which represents hundreds place. A flat is made up of 100 teeny tiny little cubes. The tens is made up of 10 little cubes. We're going to use these for the next few problems that we solve. Here's an example. We have 145 plus 322. The first thing I want to do is actually make a ballpark estimate to see what I would expect my answer to be. I want to look at 145. I need to decide, what is 145 close to? The last examples were only two-digit numbers. I could estimate to the tens here and say 145, would that be closer to 140 or 150? Or I could estimate it into the hundreds and say, is 145 closer to 100 or closer to 200? I'm going to estimate to the tens, okay, and decide, is it closer to 140 or 150? To do that, I look at the number next to it. This number is 5. Remember the rule, if it's 5 or higher, this number goes up by 1. My 100s over here just stays the same. So I'm going to leave that 100 where it is. Because this number's a 5, that means my tens are going to go up by 1, so up from a 4 to a 5. The ones place changes to a 0. So I'm estimating my answer will be 150 plus. Now I need to look at 322 and decide, what is that close to? Now I'm going to write it down here so we can think about it. 322. If I want to go to the tens place again, I'm going to look at the number right next to it, right here. This number is a 2, which is smaller than 5. That means this number stays like it is. It's going to stay a 2. The hundreds just stays like they are, 300. My tens stay the same. And the ones place changes to a 0. This is my ballpark estimate. I'm going to add these parts now. 150 plus 320. Okay, I could rewrite that problem like this to help me solve it. 0 and 0 is 0. 5 and 2 is 7. 3 and 1 is 4. This is one way to solve adding problems. This would give me an answer of 470. I would expect my answer to this problem up here to be close to 470. I'm going to show you a different way to solve adding than what I showed you down here. This is the way a lot of people do addition. Okay, today you're going to learn something just a little bit different called partial sums. All that means is we're going to break apart the places. First, we're going to add our hundreds, then we're going to add our tens, finally we're going to add our ones. Here's our hundreds over here. I have 100 and I want to add 300 more. Here's 100 and I want to add 300 more. So 100, 200, 300, 400. Using partial sums, we're going to write that first. 400, just like that. Next, I want to add my tens. I have 4 tens and 2 tens. This is really 40, and this number is really 20. We can see that over here. 4 tens and 2 tens. Each one is a 10. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. I'm going to write down 60 next. I need to make sure that I write it in the tens column. If I wrote my 60 over here in the hundreds, I would end up with the wrong answer. Step 3, I'm going to add my ones. Here's the ones place. 5 plus 2. Those are the cubes. 5 plus 2 is 7. I need to write that in the ones section. If it helps you, you can take lines and put them in between the columns to help you make your numbers nice and straight. Now we add the parts. Now we're done. We add these parts up. 0, 0, and 7 is 7. 0 and 6 is 6. 4 and nothing is 4. Our final answer is 467. Were we close to our ballpark estimate of 470? Yes, we were. These were very close. We're going to do one more together. First thing I want to do is come up with a ballpark estimate. 381 plus 157. Okay, I'm going to write that down here. 381. This time, instead of going to the closest 10, I'm going to estimate to the closest 100. In order to do that, I look at the number right next to it. This number is an 8. Remember the rule. Is it higher than 5? Yes, it is. That means my hundreds goes up by 1. So instead of 300s, I have 400. Both of these numbers this time change into zeros. 400 plus. Now I want to look at 157. I'm going to show that work down here, 157. If I want to go to the closest 100, I'm trying to decide, is 157 closer to 100 or closer to 200? I'm going to look at the tens place here to help me. Is it 5 or higher? Yes, it is. That means this 100 is going to go up from 1 to 2. And both of the numbers next to it change into zeros. My ballpark estimate then, 400 plus 200 would be 600. When I solve the problem up here, I'm looking for an answer of about 600. Remember, we're doing this using the partial products method. First, I want to add the hundreds, then I want to add the tens, and finally I want to add the ones. I'm going to use those red bars that I have off to the side to help me keep my numbers straight. Hundreds, tens, and ones. Let's get started. 300 plus 100. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 400s. 100, 200, 300, 400. I'm going to write that down starting in my hundreds. 400. Now I'm going to add my tens. I have 8 tens plus 5 tens. Wow, that's a lot of tens. Let's see what happens when we count by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130. I'm adding tens, but there were so many of them, I went over 100. When I write that, I'm going to start in the hundreds. 130. Now I need to add my ones. I have 1 plus 7. Here's the 1. Here's 7 more. 1 plus 7 is 8. Remember, it's ones, so I need to make sure my number is in the ones column. Finally, my last step says to add all of these sums or parts together. 0, 0, and 8 is 8. 0 plus 3 is 3. 4 plus 1 is 5. My final answer is 538. That's a little bit farther away from 600 than our last example. Our last problem, we were a lot closer with our estimate. That's because we were estimating to the tens. When you estimate to the 100s, your answers aren't going to be quite as close to each other. Estimating to tens is more accurate. Estimating to hundreds, that's okay too, but know that your numbers might not be as close together as if you were estimating to the closest 10. Your turn to try this. Quiz question number 3. Please use the partial sums method to solve. Okay, what you're going to do is copy 128 plus 171 into your notebook. Then you're going to add your hundreds, add your tens, add your ones, total all those parts together, and record your final answer. Quiz question number 3, you're going to make a ballpark estimate first. Okay, you can estimate these numbers either to the closest 10 or to the closest 100, whichever is easier for you. Make your ballpark estimate first. Then you're going to actually solve it, and you need to use partial sums. So again, adding hundreds, adding tens, adding ones, and then finally totaling it all up at the end. When you are finished, please take the quiz that is posted on the classroom website. Thank you, students. Have a wonderful evening, and we will practice this again in class tomorrow.